You are online.
Okay, welcome everyone to the Council of Revenues personal income meeting. Dr. Kobe, the first item on the agenda, we're calling the meeting to order. Has there been any communications to the council?
No, there has not.
Okay. Are there any public comments?
No.
How would they comment? Could they send a chat message or how would it work?
We've also invited all people to submit public testimony 24 hours before as well.
Okay. But they also, if they have a question, they can
They could
send a
chat
chat.
right now.
Okay. Okay. So let me see if give them a moment to see if there's any questions. Okay. Doesn't look like we have any messages. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the minutes from the last general fund meeting. And Marilyn, you submitted some changes, right?
Yeah, some edits to clarify
Okay.
what was
Has
said.
everyone had a chance to look at Marilyn's changes?
I didn't resend it out. It's
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't have a chance to look at those.
Did not see them.
Seth, are you able to?
I can
send
resend
us-
them out to you guys if you want. I mean, I looked at the Maryland's changes. They were pretty minor, so
Yeah,
She
they're
changed my vote.
yeah.
Can you email them out to us, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are we planning on looking at them right now?
Marilyn, are there more typos? What?
Oh, no,
Are they
it
just
was
a couple
just basically clarifying what we meant by, we were talking about that there were going to be 2 fiscal year ends in the current fiscal year. And I just basically clarified that it was because of the change of the due date to July 15th from the April 30th. And because we were talking so much about it, but there's a lot of edits, and to clarify that what I was talking about was that there were the 2 tax return year ends falling within the current fiscal year. So that's what that was about.
Seth, are you sending it out to us now?
I will right now. And to be clear,
I saw
the
a
only
typo
thing-
too just now.
yeah, the only thing the Marilyn commented on was on her comments.
Yeah, only on my comments.
Okay. So you're sending us a redlined version, Carl? Seth?
Sure.
Okay.
Department of Tax email server.
Yep. That's me.
So I remember dating myself when I first joined the Council on Revenues. The only person in the Department of Taxation who had an email address was the director.
Well, I
You
just
are
got
ancient.
I just got Microsoft Outlook last year.
Okay.
I was using Lotus Notes before that.
Well, when I first started working for the state, I had to bring my own modem, and we didn't have a Pentium computer. Okay, so Marilyn, I'm looking at your comments. This is on page number 3, right? Oh, 4.
Yeah.
4, and there's something on 5. Seth, when everyone else is reviewing it, do you see on page number 2 under the discussion of general funds for fiscal 2021? Are you able to see that, Seth?
On page 2, yep.
Yeah. So you see Dr. Bonham at the very top?
Yep.
Yeah. So
Dr. Bottom made the comment.
Yeah. So we have to add the year for the fiscal year. It says 202.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So Marilyn, when you said doubling up, was that for the payments made for 2019, as well as the estimated payments made for first and second quarters for 2020?
No, I meant that in the current fiscal year, we're going to
Yeah.
have 2 tax return year ends. April 15th, that was supposed to have all the money paid in on April 15th of 2020 is now going to be was now paid in July 15th of 2021 fiscal year. So we have two big amounts coming in the same fiscal year, just because of the change of the due dates from April 15th to July 15th. Or
Didn't we also have quite a bit of estimated payments made from the first and second quarter? It was made by July 15th. We had
Yeah,
an enormous
that's
growth
correct.
because I
because,
think many taxpayers just followed the federal rule of making the first and second quarter by July, the middle of July.
So I don't have any problems with the minutes as Marilyn edited them.
Okay.
I
Anybody
just
else?
now got them.
The motion that Christie made, which was for 2020, fiscal 2020, her first name is misspelled.
Oh, no, thank you.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Thank you
I
for
know.
looking out for
Oh,
me.
yeah.
Well, then they won't know who made the motion. It's a protection mechanism.
Yeah. I'm
I
going to
felt
run
I
a
had to
quick.
say something.
No, thank you for
Thank
catching
you,
that.
Jack.
Yeah, I just did a quick spell check at least the spell check didn't catch anything further. Okay. Has everyone had a chance to look at Marilyn's comments?
I still haven't gotten it yet.
Oh, okay.
This is not for now, but maybe for future minutes. You have the report by BNF included in the minutes, and it might be better just to have it as an attachment to the minutes or something like that. Because right now it kind of just makes the minutes a little awkward because there's this page 3 number in the middle of everything else.
Oh yeah, no, that was my fault. I'll remove that.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
But subject to that, I'm okay with it. The minutes.
I'm okay also.
Yeah, I'm okay. Jessica and Scott.
I'm fine.
Yeah, I just got them and they look fine.
Okay. Okay. So any motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second. Okay. Vote to approve the minutes
as amended.
as amended with Marilyn's comments. Yes.
And other
Okay.
edits.
Okay. So Vice Chair Newell.
Yeah, so as I amended it, plus the
Aye.
other changes that were
Say
made.
aye.
Okay. Yeah. Dr. Siderhouse.
Aye.
Dr. Bonham.
Aye.
Councilmember Maynard.
Aye.
Councilmember Gluck.
Aye.
Councilmember Hayashi.
Aye.
Okay, so it's unanimously approved. Okay, next item on the agenda is discussion of the vote for total personal income forecast for calendar year 2020. So normally we rely on Dr. Bonham and Dr. Siderhouse quite heavily.
Sorry, my dog is barking
Well,
in the
we
background.
got it wrong last time, so you shouldn't listen to me.
I think the numbers were really surprising, but from what I can tell, all of the stimulus money from CARES Act really affected personal income, not only in Hawaii, but across the nation. Seeing that 15% increase,
If you go and
quite surprising.
if you go and look at page 6 of our handout, so let's see. I'm actually pretty surprised by some of the model results, but the sample average of all models for October 2020 is probably pretty close to right for 2020. Our forecast was minus 3.6. That's the UHERO forecast from September. And DBEDS was minus 12. And I think we had talked about kind of splitting the difference. I don't know what. So basically, what happened was that one, at least in our forecast, we badly missed our estimate of how much the PUA unemployment claims would be. We didn't treat the PPP loans as income. And what the BEA has done is they've treated basically virtually all of the CARES money is being treated as transfer payments, as grants. And you know, when we were working on the forecast, we assumed that the PPP loans would be treated as loans, at least until they were forgiven. And they've done it exactly the opposite. They've treated them as grants, even though many of them may not be forgiven. And so we may get downward revisions in the future. But when we reran our models with the second quarter number and went back and fixed the errors that we learned about when we got the second quarter number, we end up with a number more like 5% positive for 2020. Actually, we get 6% positive for 2020, and then minus 4 for 2021. Because of course, I mean, unless we end up with a whole nother round of stimulus that we don't know about yet, all of the unemployment benefits effectively end, including state extended benefits, end really at the end of the first quarter of 2021, unless the state does something, you know, to expand their payments. But all the federal money for unemployment benefits ends in December.
Carl, do you know how much was came in through the PUA program? How much of the,
so I could give you our estimate, which is it's so hard. The problem is that all of the unemployment claims are subject to fraud. And so, I'm not sure that I have ever seen a data release from Department of Labor that says specifically how much they've paid out in PUA claims. If it's out there, it's in the form of a press release or something. Let's see, by our estimate, in Q2, so it depends on how many of the claims are fraudulent and whether, so we know the number of claims. We have been told that the estimate is that almost half of them are fraudulent. So about 46% of the PUA claims are fraudulent, and over a third of the regular unemployment claims are invalid according to the Department of Labor. Presumably many of them because of being fraudulent, and presumably some of them also duplicates. And so you know, you have the claims data and you know how much they'll pay if they're real, but you don't know if Department of Labor is paying out on fraudulent claims or not. So what we've done is we've estimated how much we think is being paid out, assuming they're not paying out on fraudulent. And so if 46% of them were fraudulent, then they would have paid out for roughly 450 million in the second quarter for PUA, probably 660 million in Q3, and we estimate 756 million in Q4. And so that's just the PUA. The regular, when you put it all together, you put it together with the regular claims, for some reason, so we're assuming 30% fraudulent across the board, and we get about $2 billion in claims for Q2, roughly another 2 billion in Q3, and about 1.75 billion in Q4.
Thank you. Well, why was there so much fraud in the regular claims? Because, regular claims,
Low
they've
hanging
been paying
fruit.
out regular, yeah, I mean, but they've been paying it out for many years, regular claims. And we had these enhanced benefits before during the Great Recession.
I don't know. Maybe the fraudsters just thought this was a great opportunity because they knew that the Department of Labor was scrambling.
Hmm.
I mean, raise your hand if somebody filed a claim in your name. Oh, just two of us.
You did? Wow.
Okay,
Yeah.
less than 30%.
Oh, okay.
Wow. Well, there's probably a lot of the PPP loans that have to be repaid also.
Right. So I think that the numbers will probably be revised down a little bit.
Yeah, it's because there was such a rush to get things out. You had a deadline to get it, and there was so much limited funds, and everybody just turned paperwork in that may not have been correct. And
Yeah,
so,
I've been reading about people having I mean, from what I've read, and Marilyn, maybe you know the answer to this, but if you've taken out a PPP loan, in order to have it forgiven, you have to file an application with paperwork, and it's supposed to be filed through the bank that made the loan, is what I understand.
Right.
And that businesses have been having a hard time making that happen. And I haven't reached out to, maybe Christy has an idea, but I haven't reached out to the Bankers Association or anybody to find out what's happening in Hawaii specifically. I've just been reading about problems nationally.
I think the banks are starting to accept applications. It's been a relatively slow process. There are just so many of them that they wanted to automate the process, and then the rules kept changing.
Yeah.
So
the big thing is the rules kept changing, and the IRS rules are one thing, and the SBA rules are another thing, and it doesn't drive. There's so many questions, and it's very complex, actually.
Yeah, so they are starting, and my institution doesn't do this, but I was listening in on some of their earnings calls, and they are starting to send in applications, and it's taking a while for the SBA to come back and approve them. It's a huge process. It's a huge process.
It'll take about 5 months to get your loan forgiven once it's submitted.
My understanding too is that there is still quite a bit of uncertainty. So I think there's quite a few people that got PPP loans that are still on the sidelines waiting. I've heard my former clients that are not planning on applying for forgiveness till towards the end of the year, November, or close to November. So I think towards the end of this coming month, I think is where they're going to start filing for some of these claims in certain cases. So.
But I think the PPE, the money does not necessarily count. I mean, you use the money to pay for payroll and things, but it's the payroll that gets counted as income, right? Not the PPP money.
No, that's the thing. That's where we got it all. That's where we got the income calculations wrong. It's one way we got them wrong, was that we assumed that it would just show up through payroll, right? Because you're keeping people employed.
Right.
Actually, our forecast for payroll wasn't that far off. It was, but what they've done is they took the entire PPP loan amount and they treated it as a grant, basically a gift to these businesses. In other words, they're assuming that it's forgiven.
Yeah.
But why does that show up in personal income?
Because it shows up as a transfer. It's called current personal transfer receipts, and it's the same. So actually, another example of this is the CARES money that went to hospitals and nonprofit hospitals. for whatever they spent it on, whether it was PPE or testing or whatever, that all showed up as a grant. Yeah, I mean, I share your slight confusion over this, and that, so together with the PPP loans was, I don't know, I'm not sure, can't remember if it was the largest component of what showed up in the transfer receipts. I mean, we don't have this detail for the state. We have it nationally, and I mean, nationally it was the PPP loans. It was really large. Actually, it wasn't that large. Yeah, it is. I was looking at a specific category of it. I can't find the, oh, there it is. I mean, it wasn't quite as large. It wasn't as large as the direct payments to households, but it rivaled that. So the question for next year is, you know, are we going to get additional support? And you know, that's pretty tough. I mean, I think we will, but we'll have to wait till November 3rd, 4th, or 5th to find out.
Or later.
Well, it's certainly surprising, some of these numbers, because yeah, I think all of us were thinking people are out of work, and the economy is slowing, personal income can't be going up, and yet with all these transfer payments, I just think of it as helicopter money just descending on everyone. It really has been surprising at how much personal income has gone up, and it's not just Hawaii; it's throughout the nation. The national numbers are
it was
showing it
bigger
too.
in Hawaii.
Yeah.
It was larger in Hawaii than it was nationally, and because one, we pay higher unemployment benefits to start with, and we did really well on the PPP loans.
Yeah, I did a conference with the SBA district director. We had way more than our percentage in terms of PPP loans.
We're
I
number
can't
one.
remember. Yeah, I mean, we were way up there. You know, relative to our population.
I mean, to put it in perspective, though, the second quarter number for income was way positive. The second quarter number for GDP was the worst in the country, right? It's like minus 40% annualized. And the jobs data through the first 3 quarters of the year is horrendous, right? So essentially, you know, we're not producing anything. We didn't have any tourists, but we got this huge inflow of funds fed that suggests that next year is going to be very weak.
I would agree.
Yeah, it's artificial support that we're
Still just talking about the calendar 2020, right?
Yeah, so we only have 3 more months to go.
I would say
less than 3 months. Yeah.
5% for 2020 and -4 for 2021.
Where are we cumulative for 2020, Carl?
Well, we only have half a year of data.
Average those 2 numbers, and what do you get roughly?
Where are we at now?
Well, 2.2 and 15.9 for first 2
We're at
quarters.
9%.
Yeah, 9%. So
you would think that, I mean, there's no more PPP coming in, so you wouldn't think it would be
So the
higher in the second half.
The big ones that I mean, there's a tiny chance that after the election, we'll get some kind of
Yeah.
small package of PPP support or UI support. But the big ones that won't repeat themselves under current law are the PPP and those $1,200 checks to everybody in the state. Well, everybody under some income limits.
So most of that money came in April, May, and June, I would think.
That's right.
Yep.
And so,
Yeah, that's why the second quarter was so large.
yeah, that is not going to be repeated. We don't have any legislation for another PPP. And it looks like they're thinking of bailing out the airlines with additional stimulus money, if anything. And one more stimulus for everybody.
So,
But
so Carl, can I ask a question? So
yeah. Go ahead,
with
Scott.
regard to your the 2021 impact of this, the -4, knowing that the current year, I guess it's being inflated by all of the PPP money and everything being treated as though it's qualifying, I guess, and having heard that, I guess you made some assumptions that it would not qualify, but if those numbers back up in 2021, so there's needs to be repaid in 2021, does that impact the 4%, or is that already factored into your -4?
So I think you're asking if if a lot of the PPP loans aren't forgiven, but instead are treated as loans, or if the businesses chose to use them as loans rather than, then that would, no, we didn't come up with any estimates for what that might look like. And yes, it would change the numbers, right? It would eventually lower this year when the BEA finally got around to figuring it out. That might be 5 years from now. That would eventually lower the 2020 number, and yeah, it would make definitely have an impact on. See, would I get that right? Yeah, it would lower 2020. It wouldn't necessarily change the level of 2021, but it would change the year-over-year growth
The percentage, yeah.
Yeah.
But from what I've seen on these applications, I think by and large, I know nothing about the fraudulent applications, but by and large, the honest businesses that borrowed the money under PPP, they're getting, most of that is going to be forgiven.
Yeah, I would think so too.
Yeah,
You know,
it qualifies
there's a lot
under.
of other things that that we're working on trying to sort out for our next forecast. I mean, any of the housing assistance programs, all of that's going to get counted as income, right? And I mean, those are relatively small, right? We're talking of 100 million here, 100 million there.
Yeah.
But there's going to be large needs for that next year as well. And it's kind of inconceivable that there won't be more of this kind of assistance in 2021. And the -4 comes from really assuming that there is none, right? And so I think there's good reason to back off the -4. I mean, I think whoever gets elected, we're going to see additional stimulus next year.
Yeah.
Just a matter of how much and how it's set up.
But even if we just go back to kind of a normal, I can't believe we'll be normal next year.
No.
You would think income would be lower than this year, just based on these numbers.
Well, it's being offset. I mean, yeah, I mean, the transfer payments were so large that you have to get, I mean, I have a really hard time believing next year won't be negative.
Right. I agree with you, Carl.
What do you think? What do you think GDP will be next year?
GDP
for Hawaii. I mean, if we're operating -40 in the second quarter of this year, and assuming that they're going to be smaller negatives for the other 2 quarters.
well, we don't get any GET from the PPP funds that were going to be forgiven.
No, I was just asking for GDP, kind of an underlying.
So right now, I'm just looking at it. I'm just looking at numbers that come out of my model, having just run it and not paid any attention to the weird things that are going on in it because of the new data. But we're getting -9 for the year for 2020, and followed by +4.5 next year.
Yeah.
Right,
That
because the
sounds
GDP
reasonable.
the GDP bounce back is all about going back to work and about having tourists come back.
Right.
What about all that rent income that was deferred? Or, we have a lot of people who own condo rentals or short-term rentals. I mean, and a lot of the landlords had to defer seeking remedy against their tenants who aren't paying.
So you're already seeing that. I mean, we have second quarter GDP, and if you look at the data on, let's see, real estate and rental leasing, that category, which is kind of a strange category because it also includes imputed value of homes that are owned. And so the decline there is sort of even more more surprising, if you will. So it really reflects. So I'm looking at the data. Real estate and rental leasing, well, didn't fall as much as I thought. In the second quarter, it fell 1%.
People were still trying to hang on. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's so much of that is imputed value
Yeah.
of owned homes, right? And that didn't go down.
That's going up. Yeah.
So it was growing at 2 to 3% a year before in Q1 and 2019 Q4, and then it fell by 1%. So it's a 3 to 4% swing, percentage point swing.
I'm just concerned right now that, Hawaii has been among, I believe, 3 states with a declining infection rate, COVID-19 infection rate. And the rest of the nation seems to be going up, maybe a second wave, and Europe is really getting out of control. My concern is that we may be facing with a second wave, maybe later on in the wintertime, that we haven't seen.
That's the number one concern, right?
Yeah.
That's why the governor, oops, I better not say that.
What?
Nothing.
You're being recorded.
We need a mask mandate. Everybody in the state needs to be wearing a mask all the time, except when they're on Zoom. I mean, there's hard science that shows that really matters, and we're definitely facing the prospect of another surge.
Yeah. So that's my concern, is that we haven't seen the end of this pandemic yet, and the virus seems to have, I guess it has morphed a bit, and so
Interesting part about that is that if imagine if the surge that's going on in the mainland right now spreads from the Midwest more, and if California looks like Wisconsin or Washington looks like Wisconsin, the whole country looks like that.
Yeah.
Then that just points towards a greater likelihood of another round of federal stimulus because of the economic fallout from the spread. So then, yeah, GDP might take a hit, but income could see another boost.
Well, tourism is going to be affected by this also.
Yeah.
Both in terms of people wanting to come to Hawaii and in terms of people in Hawaii wanting tourists to come. In both cases, it's going to, surge in activity on the mainland is going to hurt us.
Yeah,
that's correct.
And let's pretend things don't get worse. I mean, the visitors are not flocking back. There are a few that are coming, but I was a little bit surprised that the numbers weren't a bit higher. I was disappointed. I don't know, put it that way. The numbers weren't a bit higher.
It's above the assumptions that we used in our forecast. So we assumed that we'd start off at about 10% recovery in October, and we're probably closer to 15 to 16%. It's not nothing to get overly excited about, but it's positive.
Is there any validity to the argument that I've heard that because they on the mainland as it's getting colder, people are being pushed inside, which obviously increases the chance of infection. But a place like Hawaii, because it's a warmer climate, people are able to be outside, and with the ability to remotely work and the opening of these other short-term rentals and other types of stuff like that, is somebody had mentioned to me they thought that there could be an increase of tourists flocking to Hawaii working remotely, and not necessarily flocking, I shouldn't say flocking, but there may be an increase of visitors working from Hawaii to try to escape the virus on the mainland. But I mean, does anybody have any thoughts on that? I'm just curious.
Well, I've heard that also. No, just anecdotal, but I haven't seen any data on that.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything. Okay. Yeah, I was just curious, Jack, because I've heard it too, and didn't know if there was any numbers backing that up, if we're seeing anything.
We should have data on Q3 home sales from the title guarantee data. Right now, I think we only have data through the second quarter, and of course that was affected by the shutdown. And we saw big drops in the number of houses that were being bought by mainland and international buyers. But we should get data for the third quarter fairly soon. And I mean, the story makes some sense, obviously. I mean, why wouldn't you, if you had the resources, why wouldn't you, move to the Big Island and work remotely? But whether or not it's large enough to matter, I don't have any idea.
Just 5 or 6 hour time difference would be the why wouldn't you?
Yeah, and I mean, do you really have? I mean, yeah, right now most of us are working remotely, but not everybody has. That's not guaranteed to continue either, right? So in terms of the outright move, the idea that somebody who's a tech worker is just going to up and move seems pretty far-fetched.
There are some people moving from Silicon Valley out, but the companies like Google and some of the other big companies are reducing people's pay if they move. And they don't require their employees
They move to cheaper locations.
Yeah, to cheaper locations. So they actually have to take a pay cut if they move. And the company checks that. And in Hawaii, I guess the biggest problem is how do you really track to see whether someone's in Hawaii for more than half the year and living as a resident, if they're renting something temporarily and getting paid by a California company that's treated as California income. We won't see that money coming into Hawaii. So that is one thing. Unless they're residents working more than half the time in Hawaii and declaring Hawaii as their residence, you won't see the personal income going up from these tech workers and other people who can work from home.
That should be sourced in Hawaii.
It should be sourced in Hawaii.
Yeah, they should be paying Hawaii income tax, Maryland. Those people. That's a project set, Dr. Kobe.
That is a project because there are people who are moving and they're going to switch to residency because not residency, but they are going to be in Hawaii more than 50% of the time.
Because income.
Huh?
So I'll move 5% for 2020 and -3 for 2021, since I didn't get any traction on my last motion.
Can we deal with those 2 years separately?
Sure.
So you're saying +5 and -3?
I was okay with your first estimate.
So I'll take the vote separately.
I was just trying to get some motion here. We're having a lovely
2020 versus
Okay. Yeah. So we need a second to that motion. +5 for calendar year 2020. Okay.
I'll second it.
So I'm gonna take. Okay, great. We're gonna take a vote for calendar year 2020.
No, can we discuss?
And we're gonna change.
Yeah. Can we discuss it?
Okay, go ahead.
Well, no, I just so what we're basically saying,
no, sure.
So what we're basically saying is that for the first half of 2020 is +9, and the second half of 2020 is going to be basically 0. if we want to
Right.
average out to around 5.
Right.
Okay, maybe slightly positive or whatever. Is that consistent with what you're thinking, Carl?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really sure why I came off of the 6% that we started talking about. I think the second half will be a little bit better than 0. But I made the motion, so I'll stick with it.
Well,
I
I
mean,
don't
this is
know.
a this is a personal income forecast that it matters, but it's not like we're doing a general fund forecast.
Yeah, but it feels strange because, we know there are definitional issues and measurement issues with personal income, but we don't have any choice but to forecast personal income.
Right.
However BEA defines it
Right.
Yeah.
and measures it.
Yeah, it would be a lot more sensible to be forecasting, personal income net of transfer payments or labor earnings.
Right. Or even GDP.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so this doesn't include capital gain income, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh,
Personal
sure it
income
does.
doesn't it?
No,
Sure it does.
No, it doesn't include capital gains. I think
Why not?
I'm not sure why, but I've asked that question before.
Oh, no. Well, it has to be realized capital gain income.
If
You're
someone,
telling me that realized capital gains would not?
I
You
thought,
guys, the definitions are all on the back of your packets.
and it doesn't include
And what
capital.
does it say?
Proprietors' income, current production income of sole proprietorships, partnerships, and tax-exempt cooperatives, excludes dividends, monetary interest received by non-financial businesses, and rental income received by persons not primarily engaged in real estate business. But there is the supplements to wages and salaries consist of employer contributions. There is something else.
Yeah, that's. So it definitely includes dividends, interest, and rent. And yeah, the supplements to the salaries and the transfer payments. So capital gains income, that's a good. I don't know where that would show up.
Well, personal income receipts on assets. Personal interest income plus personal dividend income.
Receipts on assets is income, right? It's a flow.
Right. And realized capital gains are a flow also.
Yeah, that's.
Well, unrealized also.
I think we were talking about it many years ago. I thought it excluded capital gain.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah,
I shouldn't go by memory, but.
I have some vague memory of that too. But that would also be consistent if it's excluding dividends and monetary interest.
Well, interest is very low right now in the interest income.
Yeah.
Banks don't pay anything. Maybe they'll get to a point.
Personal income receipts on assets.
Well, I mean, I think of that like you have some asset that's generating income, whether it's rental income, royalties. But I
mean, they make us pay taxes on realized capital gains.
Yeah. I mean, I looking at the language, I wouldn't think it would include capital gain, but I don't know. I mean,
why? But why not? I mean,
because personal income.
If you from a finance perspective, if you're earning dividends versus capital appreciation,
I would think the definition would be different. When it says
right
income,
here, it does not include. That I had it a second ago. It includes some income, blah, 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 blah. It does not include realized or unrealized capital gains or losses.
Yeah. I think, Jack, the reason I think from my experience, I would think income, it could be, but I would think gains is the term I would use if it to include like from the sales of assets.
Well, I mean, that's what I mean by realized capital gains. So,
Yeah, I don't recall, it may not make sense, but it's not included.
So yeah, I guess so. You're saying, Carl, it's not included, realized or unrealized capital gains.
It's not. It is
yeah,
not.
and you know what, it may be a timing issue,
Fact
in the
numbers.
sense that the realized capital gains have really occurred at some other time period, and you're just taking advantage of them when you
Yeah.
sell the asset or something.
Yeah, and it can be real, yeah, it can be
Yeah.
real lumpy. Mhm.
Yeah.
I had a question about the rental income also. If someone who's from out of state owns rental property in Hawaii and all of a sudden stops receiving that rental income, does that affect our personal income number, or because they're non-residents, it doesn't count?
I think it does affect our income. They do a thing called a residence adjustment. And usually for Hawaii, it's very, very small. Normally I think of that as, you know, us counting income that we earn somewhere else in the world. But I think it works both ways.
So it's a two-way adjustment.
Yeah, it would have to be. Otherwise
Yeah,
it
yeah.
wouldn't make any sense.
Because I can see that, you know, just on Maui, I could see all the condos that were originally vacation rentals, timeshares and everything. All of them have gone empty for months now
Yeah.
because of the travel restrictions. So all that rental income is not going to come through for the rest of the year.
The residence adjustment represents the net flow of compensation of interstate commuters. So I don't know if that's really about labor income.
Mhm.
Okay, so where were we?
Anyway, I don't
We were
know.
at 5%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a motion pending. Any further discussion? So anyone want to second the motion at 5% for calendar year 2020?
I think I did.
Christy did already.
Oh, okay, Christy. Okay. Okay. Okay, we're ready for vote. Vice Chair Niwao,
Yes.
Dr. Siderhout,
Yes.
Dr. Bonham,
Yes.
Councilmember Maynard,
Yes,
Councilmember Gluck,
Yes.
Councilmember Hayashi.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so it's unanimously approved at 5% for calendar year 2020. Okay. So Dr. Bonham, you proposed negative, is it -3 or that you
3.
proposed for -3 for calendar year 2021? So any discussion about calendar year 2021?
Aren't we going up quite a bit in 2020 because of all this federal funding that came through, so that when we look at 2021, if we don't have that amount of the federal stimulus, we're going to see a bigger drop in our income?
I think there's a lot of uncertainty on what the
Yeah.
next year will bring.
Yeah.
The
That's
reason
bad.
why I think I originally said -4 and I changed it to -3. I believe that we will see an expansion of an additional federal stimulus in 2021, and you know, none of it's on the books right now. And I also think that the state will almost certainly come up with some resources to extend unemployment benefits beyond the first quarter of the year.
Well,
What's your,
the unemployment fund, that usually was funded by employers, but since so many of the businesses are going out of business.
I understand all that. That doesn't change the state has right now, the legislature gave the governor the authority to borrow, I believe, up to $2 billion.
Yeah.
And
For
mean,
general
maybe they
operating
won't-
expenses, yeah.
they, you know, maybe they won't do that. But if you still have 90,000 people unemployed and their unemployment benefits are running out, 13 weeks into the new year, it's kind of hard to believe that we wouldn't try to help those people. So I guess I'm just not I don't think that we're done with federal stimulus or state support.
I don't think we have to be done, but it probably will not be as much as what we have received this year. And the general economy is going to be slow to recover in Hawaii, especially.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what is your tourism number looking like now for 2021?
So we're just now working on updating that forecast, and mostly what we've been doing is looking at the near term and the whether there have been any real changes in perceptions from travelers. And so basically the forecast isn't really changing for 2021, which means that we're at about between 15 to 20% recovery right now for the second half. For the second half of October, the number of visitors that are arriving are roughly equivalent to a 15% of last October's levels.
So that's about 4,500 a day.
Roughly 4,000. I think it's 3,800 a day right now is the average. I'm not counting the surge that we saw in the first few days. I'm only waiting for it to come back down, and then I average that out and assume that goes on for the rest of the month. And then, so the assumption that we made in our last forecast is that we would get back to 65% of previous year's levels by December of next year. So it starts off very, very slowly at about 30%, and then it ramps up in the second half of 2021 under the assumption that we start to see people getting vaccinated and we have much more widespread testing.
Okay, so that on average, on average for the entire year, you're talking about 40% or so.
So a little over 4 million then.
15 at the start, 65 at the back end, roughly 40 in
50?
the middle.
Was it 30? I thought Carl said 30 at the beginning of the
So
year.
you're talking about 2021, it's very close to 40%.
So
there's some points I'd like to make with respect to, what I see when I travel on the mainland. The economy here is not the same as it used to be. Businesses are shuttered.
Marilyn, I've lost you.
Yeah, we lost you, Marilyn. Okay.
Okay, I wonder what happened.
I guess we can continue until Marilyn can rejoin us.
So what's going on in our numbers right now is, so in labor earnings, so payroll is down 6 to 7% this year and then grows by 5% next year. But it's the transfer payments that are swinging, right? So we're transfer payments are up almost 70% this year and then down 30% next year.
Sorry, Carl, could you repeat that?
So the transfer payments are still elevated in 2021 compared to 2019. They're still about 3 billion higher in 2021. So we don't currently have an assumption that everything goes away, right?
But that's down from 2020.
Oh
yeah, a lot. So in 2020,
you said it was plus 40% or something.
It was plus 70%, and for the whole year, it's up 8 billion. It's from 12 billion to 21 billion.
Jeez.
And the second quarter was even bigger than that, right? I mean, the second quarter was enormous. Second quarter growth rate was over 100%. It was 140% growth year over year.
Amazing.
Yeah, so then we have it tapering it off. You know, we get rid of the direct payments and the PPP. So then the third quarter is 70%, the fourth quarter is 63% growth. First quarter next year is 30%, and then it turns negative year over year.
Starting with the second quarter of 2021.
2021, yeah.
Because there's no way you can repeat second quarter
Well,
of 2020.
could.
Well,
Sorry about that, internet.
You're
problem.
back.
Yep, yep.
Yeah,
okay, so I think Marilyn was trying to make a point that that -3 is not bad enough.
yeah, it's not bad enough. That's what I think, just because I think that people's behavior have changed. Because of the change in spending patterns, I'm concerned that we won't see the, we're looking at the velocity of money that's slowing down, and so we might not see the economy coming back quite as, vigorous as it was in the past.
But one thing you have to keep in mind is that when you've shut an economy down, right, the bounce back has to be large when you reopen it. In fact, we're going to see a bounce back in the third quarter for GDP when we get the data for Hawaii. It's not going to be like the U.S. mainland where you'd go down 32% or whatever the number was for Q2, and then you bounce 33%.
Yeah.
But we're going to, our bounce off of -42 is going to be a pretty sizable positive number. And same thing holds for 2020 to 2021. And so the only thing that's dragging 2021 down is the loss of all these transfer payments. I mean, you think about the number of people who were out of work in the second quarter of this year, and we've already recovered about 70,000 of those jobs. So, I mean, obviously the caveat is if we go through a huge third wave and everything gets shut down again, then that's a different story, right? But if we manage to manage the risk like no one else has done, and keep some semblance of a recovery going, you have to have a stronger 2021. I mean, you can't go lower than 0, right? I mean, during the second quarter of 2020, we were shut down.
Marlon, what number are you thinking for calendar 2021?
I'll be more comfortable with a -4 than the one that Carl was mentioning before.
Well, really at this point, is there a substantive difference between -3 and -4?
Yeah, I don't think so. Not at this point.
So.
And there's so many unknowns. I mean,
yeah, I agree. There's a lot of unknowns.
Yeah, if we're going to have another shutdown, what's going to be another federal stimulus package, state stimulus, how
Redefinition of what personal income is.
Yeah, but I would agree that that the economy is going to be coming back.
Yeah.
But whether the personal income growth, as we see, those are two very different numbers.
Yeah.
And if we don't have the helicopter money in 2021, or we just have a lot less than that, then that's where I see the negative number. It's not because I think GDP will be negative.
Yeah, I think
2021 versus 2020.
Actually seeing a lot more tax increases that will kind of slow things down, because we can't go and borrow this kind of money from the state, for example, and not have to pay it back in a couple of years. So, when you think about where's the money going to come from, we're probably looking at GET tax increases and income tax increases. And I think that I guess there will be less consumption if people have to pay more taxes.
Well, there are going to be fewer people too.
So I think that Christy has really has it right that, the economy can do anything and income can be obviously moving in a completely different direction. And one way in which next year could be much more negative is if we've once again underestimated the size of the transfer payments for the rest of this fiscal year. right? So in other words, if we're off enough with our +5, if it ends up being +8 or +9, I don't think there's much chance of that, but the next year will be a much larger negative.
Okay.
So how do you feel about -4, Carl?
I'm fine with it. Like you said, there's given the list of things that we don't know is so much longer than the list of things that we do. That -4, -3 is the same thing.
Yeah.
So I will
Jessica?
withdraw my motion and let Marilyn make a motion.
Okay, I move that we adopt -4 as a
Okay.
growth rate.
Okay.
I'll
Second. Okay. I just want to see, Jessica or Scott, do you have any comments?
Not for me.
Oh, okay. 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 We'll take a vote for calendar year 2021. The total personal income will be -4%. Vice Chair Newell,
Yes.
Dr. Siderald,
Yes.
Dr. Bonham,
Oh, come on.
Yes.
you want to drag this out more?
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Maynard,
Yes.
Councilmember Gluck,
Yes.
Councilmember Hayashi.
Yes.
Okay. It's so -4 for calendar year 2020 is approved unanimously by the council.
2021, right?
Yeah, 2021. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So the next item on the agenda is the next general fund meeting. So this is the one that is in the big. A lot of times we meet at the beginning of the year. Dr. Colby, can you remind us of the reporting date?
The 10th of January.
The 10th.
Which is a Sunday.
Okay.
So
And
it would
then
be
when-
the 11th, I assume.
Meet on the 1st.
When do you think we
I
might
got
have
it
like the
all.
month? We might have the monthly report,
Friday the
Dr.
8th.
Colby. The 8th?
Friday the 8th.
In the morning or afternoon, you would say?
In the morning. I will get you whatever date it is, I can get you pretty close numbers, which I
Okay.
can show you at the very least. I can get you the numbers for GET, TAT, and individual income tax as a percentage of how that fared to the previous year.
Can you do that on the 7th?
Yeah, I could do that any day you guys want, right?
Do it
Like
today.
if we,
Yeah, I cannot do it today. I could do it today for September or last January.
so you think you could get it to us for afternoon meeting on the Thursday, January 7th?
Yes.
Okay. So when do normally when we meet in the afternoon, it's at 2 o'clock, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah. So how is Thursday, January the 7th at 2 p.m. for everyone?
Works for me.
Works for me too.
So hold on one second. Thursday, January 7th at 2.
Yeah.
If we did it at 3, we would be inclined to finish the meeting in 2 hours.
Yeah, and also I'm somewhat sensitive to keeping, Dr. Colby and the other staff after 4:30. And I
I'm
know
okay.
We serve at the
Yeah.
pleasure of the council all the time. So
Okay,
whatever
okay.
works for you.
we
guys.
appreciate that. So it's 2
2
o'clock.
o'clock would be
on-
better for me than 3.
Yeah. Okay, 2 o'clock on January 7th. Is that good with everyone?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. 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 Any other item on the agenda? Any other matters that we need to bring up? Okay. Said, I really, because, there was quite a disparity between what we last estimated for personal income and the current forecast. I think I'd like input from Dr. Bonham and Dr. Siderad and Christie especially, as well as the other members, on how we explain, how there was some how things were characterized and categorized, that was kind of unexpected, and that led to quite a bit of the why we were quite off from, because we were off more than 10% from our last forecast. So what I'm asking is, when you circulate the draft, can you circulate it to all the council members?
I'll have it out tomorrow morning, and it would be good if I could get it back by like 2 or 3 p.m. tomorrow afternoon.
Okay.
Okay. When is it due?
It's on the 5th, so we got time. But I try to
Okay.
get it off the next day anyway. But
Okay.
if it doesn't, it's okay. And then we have the state workers are not in on
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
What?
Election day.
Election
We got
day.
election day.
Yeah.
I've already voted.
Can't you just mail in your work?
Yeah, I can mail in my work and not my vote, huh?
Yeah. Okay. I think that concludes today's meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.